Good afternoon, everyone. 3:30 on the dot. It is a Thursday edition of Middays with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones, coming at you live inside the friendly confines of the Tri-X 57 studios right outside the heart of Atlantic City. We'll take you right around 4:30ish, 60 to play with. As always, get social with us at Rich Q on X and IG. Like us and comment on Facebook. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q. A very busy Thursday. I thought I was going to be coming on the air today, waxing poetic, feeling giddy, excited, happy about my New York Knicks clinching last night on the road against the Boston Celtics and get them out of there, the defending champs. And what happens last night? As I warned you guys on Tuesday, and as I mentioned it yesterday on Middays with Q, our NBA insider, Jonathan Marshall, joined me. My worst case scenario and situation occurred last night. Not only did the Knicks get drubbed by the Boston Celtics 127-102, and the Celtics stay alive in an elimination game. Right now, the Knicks still lead the best of seven second round series, 3-2, an opportunity to close tomorrow night in New York in Madison Square Garden. But the Tatum loss kind of galvanized the Boston Celtics. It galvanized them last night. And when you start to see players like White and Brown making shots, listen, that's who they are. That's who they are. But on a night where there was no Tatum, and on a night where, again, you got great production from Jaylen Brown, an unbelievable contest from Derek White, it was the bench. It was the bench. The kid, Luke Cornett, sounds like Tupperware. He has 10? He had a bunch of, what do you have, 6, 7 blocks? He was like a man possessed, right? Pritchard, 17. This kid was a plus 24 on the floor last night for the Boston Celtics. He played 39 minutes. The Boston Celtics will live and die with the three-point shot. Live and die. And last night they were on fire, 45%. And I thought this game, if you're a Knicks fan like I am, you're watching this game unfold. And, again, Cat has kind of had his issues. I don't think it was his best performance. I think at times Cat's a little too soft. He's got to go up hard near the rim. Brunson had the off night. Bridges didn't give you much. OG gave you absolutely nothing. Players were in foul trouble left and right. I thought one of the biggest turning points in this game, and this is where you have to criticize the head coach, Tom Thibodeau of the New York Knicks, because you wanted this game, if you're a Knicks fan, get it into the fourth quarter. Just get it into the fourth quarter. Be within shouting distance, right? Be within striking distance of the Boston Celtics. If you're down 10, 8, 6 in the fourth quarter, if you're down 12, 13 points, turn around and what do you need to do? You need to get it under 10, right around 6. You can ill afford to have guys in foul trouble, foul problems. But I thought there was a 3-minute stretch where he had to put Mitchell Robinson back on the floor and take Cat out. And he had to put Bridges and McBride on the floor at the same time. And, the Brunson issue, I get it. It happens. You get in foul trouble. You want to live and die with him. Best case scenario, they cut it under 10, and he's coming back in the fourth with 9 to play. Listen, it was too little too late. He fouls out, but I thought Thibodeau made a mistake. I thought Thibodeau last night, Robinson, look, he's not an all-time great. No one's suggesting that Mitchell Robinson's going in to the Hall of Fame, right? But he was a monster on the boards. He was knocking down free throws. He gave them high energy. He was playing both ends. He had a couple buckets, a couple points. He was going to the free throw line. He gave you good production in 23 minutes, whereas you needed that last night. And I thought it was just too little too late. And I think it's fair to criticize Thibodeau, for not, again, here's the thing. We sit there and we talk about Thibodeau, sticking with the starters in the third quarter, right? That's kind of what we talk about, right? We always talk about Thibodeau. But again, I was just the defensive effort last night. I thought it was just at times it's where it needed to be, but they did not defend the 3-point shot. They just didn't. and you had an opportunity to shut the door. You had an opportunity to slam the door shut on the Boston Celtics. You know, the hole is dug, the lime is placed down, and all you had to do is just put the body. You just had to bury the body, and they couldn't do that. They could not do that. And I'm wondering again, you talk about that game five, that was a bad loss last night. And when you're talking about, Thibodeau sitting there saying, hey, we got to play 48 minutes, particularly, in that third quarter defensively. Well, listen, they didn't do anything outlandish offensively. I mean, they didn't blow you away last night offensively. Brunson had an off night. OG gave you absolutely nothing. Josh Hart, bloodied, battered, and bruised, gave you great minutes, great energy, but also I thought at times some of the shot selection a little out of control, 7 of 15 from the floor. But without him and without, really, if you think about it, the effort from Robinson last night and McBride, quiet night with 11, but still, I like when he's in the game and on the floor. They're losing this game by 35, 40 points. And that's without Tatum. Defensively, let the Boston Celtics shoot it 35, 40 times from beyond the arc. If they're going to make it, they're going to make it. Last night was one of those games, 22 of 49, 45%. They went to the line 24 times. 24 times they got to the line last night. 26 times last night. And they shot 53% from the floor. You can't do much about that. So now my worst fear comes true. It's a game 6 in New York, Madison Square Garden, where you just know if the Boston Celtics are hanging around or the Knicks fall behind double digits early, the crowd's going to get zapped. You're going to have a white knuckler. You go in that fourth quarter, the Knicks need to put them away early. Do not give them a chance to breathe. Smother, smother, smother. I don't care if it's an old school 98-96 Knicks over Pacers / Bulls / Heat kind of 90s affair. Just get them out because I don't trust the Knicks going on the road into game 7. I don't. When you're up 3-0 in the series, you've got wiggle room. You can afford, you don't want to lose a game, but you lose that game 4-3-1. All right, now you lose game 5, it's 3-2. Now you're starting to think. Now you lose game 6, and it's 3-3. Now you're starting to panic. You're starting to panic. You're talking collapse, epic collapses. The hardest thing in sports to do is what? Close out a series, especially in the NBA, especially in hockey. And the Knicks couldn't do it last night. And Tibbs has to take the brunt of the criticism, and Brunson's got to step up too. Brunson has to have a Brunson performance. So there you have it, 127-102. Championship DNA, heart effort by the Boston Celtics. I mean, look, if you're going to get those two role players beating you like that, then the Boston Celtics have earned the right to stretch this series and potentially go 7 games, and they would host on Sunday against the Knicks. A situation that I do not want. I do not want. I think we all, if you're a Knicks fan, want to avoid that. Last night, Minnesota closing out Golden State 121-110. They close out that series in 5. Kerr comes out afterwards, Steve Kerr, head coach of the Warriors, and says, look, if Steph's not hurt, we've got a championship run in us. I think this is the end. I think the window of the Golden State Warrior, the run that the Warriors have had over the years, I think it ended. I think it ended. And I think it's a very unsettling, uncertain offseason. If you're a Warriors fan, I mean, listen, the golden era, I mean, it was a hell of a run. It was a great run. You can make the case that the Golden State Warriors are the last great dynasty, the NBA. Because what did they used to do? The Splash Brothers, right? They had that just barrage of threes, suffocating defense. You share the ball selflessly, and away we go. That's how they left their mark in the NBA. That's how they left their mark on the game of basketball. And what'd you have last night? Well, you had Minnesota T-Bulls kind of take that blueprint, did they not? And beat them by 11, 121-110. I mean, that era, it's done. It's done. It really is. It was a great a run of Western Conference Finals appearances, a run of championships, a run of just putting up monster offensive numbers. Monster offensive numbers. I mean, to a man, you have to give the Timberwolves credit. They shot 63% and 42% from beyond the arc. So it's hard not to when a team beats you four straight times, right? With Curry being there or not. I mean, think about this. Golden State has won two playoff series since winning the 2022 title, and each loss pretty much signaled something pretty much minute, right? You lose to the Lakers, that ends kind of an awkward season. That was the whole Draymond Green punching Jordan Poole in training camp. It kind of lingered and followed them all year long. You lose to Sacramento in the play-in tournament last year. You say goodbye to Klay Thompson. That loss last night, it just felt that it's the end, right? It just felt like that run of great Golden State basketball where, again, they can be down 16 and they're going to shoot themselves right back in. I mean, look, if Curry is healthy, Curry can still play at a high level. He can. But now, are you building a foundation around a 37-year-old who's injured, right? Soon to be 38. And then you're hoping that the wheels don't come off again in March, April, May, right around playoff time. I mean, they've got some questions to answer. Green's going to be 36 after next year's All-Star break. Butler, who turns 36 before training camp against Curry, is going to, pretty much a racing towards 40. And the Western Conference is not getting easier. The Western Conference is a juggernaut. It's getting younger. And that's the problem some of these teams have. They want to put all their proverbial eggs around one player's basket or in one player's basket. And in the NBA, you can't do that. You cannot, you can't do that in the NBA. You can't. Because if you want to start building around players that are breaking down, players that are getting older, you're not going to win. You're not going to win. Go ask the Philadelphia 76ers and the nonsense that they're going through with Embiid, which I'll have a couple thoughts on in a moment. But you're not going to win that way. And Golden State, they had their run. They had epic runs, championships. You've got, if you want to sit and say a Hall of Famer in Thompson, who's no longer with them, fine. Great shooter, an all-time great. Not the player he once was. Curry, Hall of Famer. Kerr, you want to stick him as a Hall of Fame head coach, whatever. Point being is that it's a young man's game. And you have to be really lucky and good in the NBA, I think, of any sport to win a championship. But when you have this kind of sustained Kansas City Chief-esque like success, right? Eventually, it comes to a head. It comes to a head. Listen, it's a great run. And the problem is now with the NBA and the collective bargaining agreement, it's made it a lot more difficult to kind of keep dynasties alive, right? I mean, they got that fine line, how much you're spending, the moves that you have to make. Guys are wanting to get paid. You get these max contracts. Guys are getting older. They break down. Other teams get younger. They're more hungrier. So Golden State finished last night. So the Minnesota Timberwolves move on to the Western Conference Finals, and they will most likely play OKC, which has an opportunity to close out the Denver Nuggets. Indiana awaits the Knicks. I'm sorry, the winner of the Knicks in Boston. Hold on. I'm sorry. I apologize. Indiana awaits the winner of the New York Knicks and Boston Celtics series for the Eastern Conference Finals. I know I got ahead of myself a little bit. All right, 3:40 on this Thursday edition, Middays with Q, live inside the friendly confines of our Tri-X 57 studios, right south the outskirts of Atlantic City. Rich Quinones here. I mentioned the Philadelphia 76ers, and it is kind of bizarre. Daryl Morey came out and believes that they can build around Joel Embiid. And if Embiid wants to be here, right? And that's the operative thing. Now, they have the number 3 overall pick. And I'll tell you this. It was a Bad season for a lot of reasons if you're a Sixers fan. Now, did they strike gold with the lottery pick and number three? Okay, you're looking for that franchise changing player. Is it going to be Ace? Is it going to be Harper? We know it's not going to be Cooper Flag. Dallas Mavericks are set in stone. They're not trading that pick. They will draft Cooper Flag out of Duke. But the Sixers had this season where the injuries just mounted up. I mean, it's one of their worst finishes in the past 7, 8 years. It's a nightmare. You had a 13th place finish. You won 24 games. You failed to make the playoffs. The last time they failed to make the playoffs was 2017. And the year started with a lot of high hopes, but then you go back. And even if you look at what the books were thinking, that they had the Sixers as a top contender in the East, along with Boston, Milwaukee, Cleveland came on, Orlando, the Knicks, obviously, Indiana. They had the third best odds to win the NBA title before the season even tipped off. Joel Embiid, elected, I'm going to play in the Olympics. Well, he was already banged up. I'm not going to play back-to-backs. He played 19 games. That's the lowest number of appearances of any season of his NBA career. Think about that for a moment. I mean, put it in the context. He played he featured in 39 games in 2024 and over 65 in both 2022 and 2023. And you saw the absence, right? It can't be overstated. Okay, fine. But he's also breaking down. He's getting older. And Maxey dealt with the injuries. And think about this, he was given a max deal as a restricted free agent last July. He missed a substantial amount of the season. Paul George was a disaster. It was a horrible move. That was supposed to be the big free agent acquisition, max contract. He failed to stay healthy. He's getting older. And again, you're talking about missing time, not being productive. So I'm going to weigh you're missing time to your contract, to your salary. It doesn't mesh, right? And think about it. They had these veterans, right? All these, you're trying to patch these holes with Lowry and Eric Gordon and Reggie Jackson. Okay, here you go. Let me bring in experience because experience wins championships. So does talent. Experience is great when you need it. Experience is wonderful when I have to have it. If I'm void of experience, I'm going to go out and get a vet. A pro's pro, a player that understands locker rooms, camaraderie, hey, how to win, how to make a difference, how to set an example. But if I'm not productive, it's a moot point. There's no point in bringing me in. Why'd you even bring me in? So it was a bad fallout. I mean, listen, you've got now George and Embiid, and the contracts are horrible. And there's terms out there, negative trade value, right? I mentioned this even after Embiid won the MVP. They should have traded him. They should have traded him because now I'm looking at guys like George and Embiid, and I'm looking at their contract. I'm looking at your injury history. I'm looking at your dip in production, your on-the-court performance. Other teams know that. That's why it's made it so hard to just grab another team and make a trade. You typically in the NBA now, you need 3 teams. So right now, I mean, it's probably arguably one of the worst or most difficult, speaking of Embiid, contracts to move in the entire NBA. Plus the age, plus maybe, out of shape, the lack of want, the heart, the ambition, the determination to want to practice, to want to play on back-to-backs. The wear and tear, the breaking down. And the problem is the Philadelphia 76ers are so reluctant to blow it up. And when the GM comes out and he's talking about keeping the core intact, I'm telling you right now, it's like either you're going to rip it off all in one motion or you're just going to slowly rip it off and you're going to keep sustaining these 20 and 54 something odd lost seasons. That's where you're headed. Because those players I mentioned, George and Embiid, they're not getting any younger. You can build around Maxey. You can't build around those guys. So what's it going to be? Chicken or the egg? What are we doing here? I mean, honestly, are we going to, again, you're appeasing one player. That's all the Sixers have done since they've drafted Embiid, who's been injury prone since he's come into the league, prior to even coming into the league. They're appeasing one player. They're trying to appease him and build around him, and they're giving him all these pieces. And what has he done with it? Nothing. I mean, honestly, an MVP is great, but can you get out of the second round in the playoffs? I mean, you got to be realistic. You have to be realistic. That roster that was configured was flawed. That's great. You want veteran presence. That's fine. There's a place for a vet on any team in sport. But in the NBA, you've got to take a page out of, say, OKC. You got to give me athleticism. You got to give me youth. And what happens is older players, they can't get up and down the floor like they used to, and they're breaking down. Younger players, they got spring legs, man. They got chicken legs. They're running up and down. They're ready to go. They'll play back-to-backs. They'll give you 35 plus minutes of burn. These older players can't do it. So you got McLean, you got Edwards, you got Bona, right? McCain. Focus on those guys. Now you've got the number 3 pick. Now you got the number 3 pick. Now, build around Maxey and Embiid's just there. You're not building around a 31-year-old center. You're not. You're not. And I know the Sixers fan doesn't like to hear this, but there are potential opportunities to get a team like the Lakers and the Hawks involved in a trade. I mean, the Lakers need a dominant big man to fill what is just a glaring void at center. I spoke to Jonathan Marshall, WMUR, yesterday about this on Middays. Get another team involved. Get another team involved. So if I'm hungry and I need that final piece, that other superstar, isn't that what the NBA is all about? 1-2 punch? You need to. You need to. And I feel as though the Sixers just will not cut bait on their, quote, franchise cornerstone. I feel they won't. And now you've got that balancing act. A rebuild, it's not avoidable. It's going to happen. It's just a question of when. Because all I heard from goofballs, not only in this area and other talking heads, this is the year the Sixers are going to make that run. Well, okay, how'd it work out for you? And eventually you got to look at the GM and you have to decide, is he the right guy for the job to kind of take us where we want to go? And that's yet to be seen. It's yet to be seen. I mean, that's where you're at in the NBA. Look how stacked. I mean, these teams came out of nowhere. Cleveland won 64 games. Indiana won 50 games. Detroit, which was a bad team for years, won 44 games. They had a nice little run against the Knicks. Orlando won 41 games. Miami, they're in rebuild. Atlanta's trying to figure out. The Bulls are a young team. Then you got the bottom Drex. Then look at the Western Conference. OKC is clearly the best team in the NBA. Clearly the best team in the NBA. And they have to be now with Tatum gone for the Boston Celtics. And I would still stand by that even with a healthy Tatum, OKC's coming out of the West. They've got their window of opportunity to win a championship. Houston won 52 games. The Lakers are the Lakers. They won 50 games. Denver, you're talking about 2 years removed from winning a championship. They get rid of the GM and the head coach with 3 games left to go in the season. The Clippers won 50 games. The Western Conference is stacked. And then there are teams that are had down years, but they have some money to play with. They can build. They're not hamstrung by some of these horrible contracts. The Embiid contract is a bad contract. It's a bad contract. I mean, think about when they gave him that extension. Think about that for a moment. That was a 3-year, $192.9 million contract extension. So it guaranteed him a total of $300 million through 2028, 2029, right? He signed that September. And then he turns around and he plays how many games? 19. It's a bad contract. All right, wrapping up first portion of the show. Keep it locked in to Middays with Q live inside the friendly confines of the Tri-X 57 studios. 4 o'clock, we're going to try to go live as well on the YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, comment, keep us locked in on Facebook. You can follow along at Rich Q on Q, as well as on IG. And you can also follow along on X, as we like to say. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Rich Q on the 16th of May, 2025. So 25 in the books. We got about a half an hour to play with. We'll try to come back. We'll go live on the YouTube channel right around 4 o'clock Eastern time. Keep it locked into a Thursday edition of Middays with Q. Coming back on the other side.